bodybuilding is healthy. Now, that's probably counter to a lot of things that you've seen, and it's certainly counter to a lot of things that I've seen. And I'm going to make an argument here for why bodybuilding is healthy. And of course, this is going to have some exceptions to it. So I came across a post by an IFBB pro. It's not important to name him. I'm not going to try to, like, I don't know. This isn't some weird call-out culture thing where I'm going to be like, you're wrong. He went on to say that bodybuilding is the most dangerous sport in the entire world, and then listed all the different bodybuilders that have died. And he's correct. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's incorrect. Certainly there have been a number of deaths in bodybuilding. However, I am going to take a different standpoint on this, and I'm going to say that bodybuilding itself is actually a very healthy thing to do, and that's based off of the research. So if you look at the research, bodybuilding has one of the lowest injury rates of any sport that you could possibly participate in. It's insane. Like, more people get hurt playing golf. Now, the degree of injury may differ, right? So golf, you get an overuse injury because you're, twisting your back over and over and over again, or, maybe running has a very high injury rate, but a lot of it is just shin splints and stress fractures, and, bodybuilding could be something much more severe like a pec tear. You rupture a tendon or something, and so, you can't really say, oh, shin splints and, a bicep tendon rupture are equivalent, but at least for the number of injuries that occur, bodybuilding has a low injury rate, very low. That's something to think about. Certainly lower than powerlifting or weightlifting even, and way lower than CrossFit. Bodybuilding is a relatively safe activity for you to engage in. And I have told people this for years, that I think that as we get older, we have to take a step back from the very the explosive stuff that we like to do, right? Running, sprinting, throwing, jumping, picking up heavy weights, snatches, cleans, etc. And we need to spend more time in higher rep ranges with lighter weights. And if you look at bodybuilding's pretty damn safe. I mean, it's relatively difficult to hurt yourself using some, pec machine. We have the chest press machines and stuff like that. You're not going to drop a barbell on your neck using that machine. Leg extensions. You don't see a lot of people, crush themselves on a leg extension. Whenever you can't do another rep, you just get up and walk away. It's not like a barbell. You can take a lot of things to failure. You can do hack squats. You can take that to failure. You're not going to see a lot of people take back squats or front squats to failure. There's a lot of injury risk there. Deadlifts. I'm going to deadlift to failure. Maybe not, but you could probably do hamstring curls to failure. And that'd be relatively safe, actually, especially if you're using a lighter load. If you're using a lighter load and you're doing sets of 30, 40 reps, you're not going to blow all the discs out of your back doing hamstring curls. But you might if you were saying, oh, I'm going to do, heavy deadlifts for sets of 20 rep squats. The older we get, the more risk we're taking when we do those heavier lifts. That being said, I'm going to dive into bodybuilding diets as well. I came across this, saved on a hard drive of mine. I have a bunch of old diets from John Meadows. And you know what? These are really healthy diets. It's like Ezekiel bread and eggs, and there's vegetables, fruit. What could be wrong with eating a diet of healthy, lean proteins with adequate amounts of, healthy fats like olive oil and coconut oil, and of course you're getting some of your fats from the eggs, and you're getting some of your fats from the ground beef, and you're eating vegetables, you're eating fruit. It's a very well-rounded diet. It's not, in a literal sense, you could say, oh, well, it's high in this or it's low in that, because it's, you have 3 macronutrients. One of them is going to be the lowest, and one of them is going to be the highest, unless you somehow find a way to perfectly, hit that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 ratio. But regardless, I mean, even if you went with something like a zone diet of 40-30-30, it's not really low in anything in a literal sense, right? I mean, yes, it's high in carbs because it's 40% carbs, but That just happens to be the highest macronutrient. It's not like it's an excessively high level of carbohydrate. And, even when you look at the John Meadows stuff that I have, it's not excessively high protein, it's not excessively high fat, it's not excessively high carbohydrate, and it's certainly not low carb or low fat. Definitely not low fat to the point where you'd have some kind of hormonal disruption from, like you're going to end up with a deficiency in fat-soluble vitamins or something because your fat intake is so low. No, it's a very reasonable diet. So if you follow an intelligent diet, yes, bodybuilding diets are healthy for you. Now, where do we run into problems? Well, we run into problems whenever people decide to compete. And so let's just quote Stan Efferding here. If you want to be healthy, don't compete. And we can see this. Look at the research. There are case studies and papers on natural bodybuilders. And of course, whenever they're in this massive caloric deficit for a prolonged period of time, they run into hormonal problems. It's not because bodybuilding itself is bad for you. It's that competing is bad for you. Trying to get stupid lean is not necessarily a healthy thing. I know. People look at me and they see that I have visible abs year round. And I actually just think that that's a matter of how my body distributes fat. Some guys will tell you, I had a friend who used to comment to me, he never could understand why it is that he could have striated glutes, but his abs would be the last thing to come in. Well, for me, like as luck would have it, my abs come in first. I can see my abs. I've never had striated glutes. I don't have striated delts. I don't have striated anything. But I can see my abs. So it just happens to be that that's where I lose my fat first. I don't even have quad separation. So I can see my abs even whenever my quads are still holding fat to the point where I can't see separation. I don't even have striations in my quads or something. It's not like I've ever gotten to that point, but I'm talking just basic separation, just being able to see where the muscles are. Nope, my thighs are not that lean, but I can see my abs. To get stupid lean and be striated, to have that kind of separation, that would probably be hard on my body. Like, I don't doubt it for a second. I guarantee if I was in a caloric deficit and really dieting hard, I would probably see a drop in my LH and FSH. I'd probably see some shift in my thyroid hormones. And of course, if your LH and FSH drop, then your prolactin's going to go up and your testosterone level's going to drop. So, for me, I keep a very close eye on the pituitary function and stuff like that. You should watch your FSH, you should watch your LH, you should watch your TSH. You need to watch those numbers. Because that's usually your first marker that you're overtraining or under-eating. Especially your thyroid. If your thyroid starts to get wonky, you probably need to start putting in some more calories. Now, that isn't to say that that works 100% of the time. You could have something like Hashimoto's, which, that's not like that's caused by a caloric deficit. But, if you're in a very prolonged caloric deficit, yes, you'll see a drop in thyroid hormones. And so when we look at these case studies, and we see these natural bodybuilders have a drop in their hormones, well, yeah, it's because you're basically mildly starving yourself. That's not healthy. Okay, so there goes the part of bodybuilding being healthy. Bodybuilding stops being healthy whenever you start competing. And of course, the other part, and I'm not going to ignore the elephant in the room, drugs. When you look at this, and this IFBB Pro saying that bodybuilding is the most dangerous sport in the world, it's like, kind of, because I get your point that drugs are kind of part of the sport. But when you look at a lot of these things, if you weren't taking diuretics, if you weren't taking, beta-2 agonists and stimulants and DNP and, taking liver toxic compounds, some of these drugs, they can damage your heart. You look at something like boldenone and, the changes it causes in hematocrit, or you look at something like trenbolone, and that's even neurotoxic, and dianabol is also neurotoxic. That's something you might want to stop and think about. Is it that the bodybuilding itself is dangerous, or is it the drugs that people are taking in order to compete in bodybuilding that becomes the issue? And so, I'd like to keep these things separate, actually, because I think that the bodybuilding lifestyle itself is actually, I'm okay with it. I'm totally okay with it. I think that that's a great thing that people could engage in for a long term. And I'm not anti-machines. I'm not like a barbell and dumbbell only guy. I would say that you should do some barbell training and you should do some dumbbell training. I think that there's a lot of value in moving an external load and being able to move your body well. But certainly, no one has to be doing 1 rep max back squats in order to, you know, build muscle, and certainly not in the context of bodybuilding. Now, you have to if you're going to compete in powerlifting. You got to do a 1 rep max snatch if you're going to compete in weightlifting. But like in terms of just general health and fitness, we look at resistance training and it's like, yeah, resistance training is really good for you. Plus, bodybuilders, they like to do cardio. That's not so bad. That's all right. You know, maybe you do 20 minutes on the treadmill, or you do 20 minutes on the recumbent bike, stepper, whatever it is. You do that 3 times a week, and now you've got an hour worth of cardio a week at a low intensity, so you're not beating yourself up. It's not like sprinting, and it's not HIIT, so you're not like training on the nerve and driving up all that cortisol. You're doing low intensity, steady state cardio 3 times a week, and on the other days you do some resistance training. I don't know. That sounds fantastic to me. If you really want my opinion on like health and longevity, yeah, train your back, train your arms, train your legs. You don't have to max out. You don't have to kill yourself doing any of these things. You can just get enough reps in that you feel it and it stimulates the muscle, right? That whole stimulate, don't annihilate thing, right? So you don't have to train to failure and kill yourself. I mean, maybe if you're chasing the goal of competing, but for the general person who's just looking to be generally, healthy and fit, yeah, come in, use a moderate weight, get your reps in, do some squats with a moderate load, go over and do your leg extensions and your hamstring curls, maybe hit some hack squats on the hack squat machine, maybe do some walking lunges while you're holding dumbbells, and that's your leg day. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. You're not going to hear me criticize it. If your goal is to compete in a sport, now we're getting into a different area, but I'm talking about just general health. And then if you're following a diet where, you have, eggs and peppers and spinach for breakfast, you're having your egg omelet with vegetables in it, and then, for lunch you have, 2 slices of Ezekiel bread with, chicken breast on it, and, I don't know, a side of avocado or something. Yep, still sounds healthy to me. And then, for dinner, you have maybe some rice or a potato with, some ground beef or a steak or something, and, you've got a side of asparagus with it, and gosh, this sounds like a really healthy diet. And then for like your last meal, because we all like to eat something after dinner. I know everyone pretends like dinner's the last meal of the day, but come on, you're going to eat something later. So like you have some cottage cheese or some Greek yogurt with like blueberries or strawberries in it. That sounds like a pretty damn healthy diet to me. I look at even like I said, I have these old diets from John Meadows, and it's like, these are very healthy diets. Like, these are not, it's not like, you just eat nothing but chicken breast and rice for every meal. Like, no, like, there's vegetables and there's fruit. There's eggs, there's ground beef, there's, like these are very well-rounded diets. You're not just eating tilapia and rice cakes for every meal. People do that. Don't do that. So, if you were to think about things logically and just talk about general health and fitness and well-being, yes, bodybuilding can be a very healthy endeavor for you. You're getting some resistance training, you're doing some low-intensity cardio, and if you're following a proper diet, then you're eating a diet that has adequate amounts of protein, adequate amounts of carbohydrate, and it includes fruits and vegetables in it, as well as some starches. And then you're getting good, healthy fats. There's a large range of healthy fats that you can include in there. You can have your avocado. You can have guacamole. Have some olive oil, some coconut oil, whatever. Butter. Butter is not bad for you. Butyric acid is actually good for your gut. The problem with fat is that people overconsume it. And you could say that about carbohydrates. The problem with carbohydrates is that people overconsume it. It isn't that carbohydrates are inherently bad. You're over consuming sugar. Stop drinking 6 liters of Coca-Cola a day. Have a have some vegetables and maybe a piece of fruit. Have an apple. Have you heard of them? Um, you know, it really is that simple. I used to remember I used to have my pre-workout meal, right? I'd eat 2 of those mozzarella string cheese sticks, an apple with some almond butter. Because I have discussed this in the past. I don't know why, for whatever reason, for it is for me, having a little bit of fat with my pre-workout meal always does better than having no fat with it. Maybe it slows my digestion down or something. I don't know, but some cheese, an apple, and a little bit of almond butter. That was a perfect pre-workout meal. Digested easy. Never had any gastric upset or anything. Never threw it up. Never felt nauseous. It worked for me. But you need to find what works for you. Maybe some people don't handle that well. So maybe for you, you really have to stick with some kind of really lean protein, and a carbohydrate source, that cream of rice or something like that doesn't have any fat in it, because we're all a little bit different. There's nothing wrong with that. Get your fats in a different meal. But the point being, if you looked at bodybuilding overall, if you were just talking about eating a well-rounded diet and doing some resistance training and doing some cardio, the bodybuilding lifestyle is a very healthy lifestyle and has a very low injury rate. Where bodybuilding becomes, quote, dangerous is, once we get into this whole thing of competing. It's the extreme diets, it's the extreme drug protocols, it's the dehydration, it's the diuretics. If you're engaging in the bodybuilding lifestyle but you have no intention of competing, it's probably pretty healthy for you. I really think that that's been overlooked, unfortunately. But yeah, these things become dangerous because people start doing dangerous things. And I don't think that it's because bodybuilding itself is dangerous. It's that taking drugs is dangerous. And, I'm sorry, every drug is dangerous. Tylenol is dangerous. I'm not trying to just bash, the bodybuilding drugs. Look at the number of people who overdose on Tylenol. Tylenol is a very dangerous drug, actually. Advil is a very dangerous drug, actually. Aspirin. You can have internal bleeding from aspirin. There are no, quote, safe drugs, I guess. You can certainly talk about the fact that some drugs have a much higher incidence of adverse outcomes than others, but still, every drug that you put in has some risk that comes with it. You could have a bad reaction to literally any drug at all. Benadryl. There isn't a drug on the market that's completely safe. But certainly once you get into this thing of stacking many drugs, now we're talking about polypharmacy, which is well documented as being a dangerous thing even whenever doctors are putting patients on multiple drugs. Polypharmacy is dangerous in general. So when you're taking a testosterone, a DHT, and a Nor19, and you're combining that with a beta-2 agonist and who knows what else, maybe you're taking insulin with it and growth hormone and whatever, now you really are in a game of polypharmacy. And polypharmacy is what's dangerous. I don't think that doing moderate resistance training and some cardio while eating a well-rounded diet is dangerous. But yeah, if you want to compete, that's where things break down, and that's where bodybuilding becomes dangerous. Outside of that, I actually think bodybuilding is probably healthier than 99% of the other shit that we do. I mean, really, like I said, bodybuilding has a lower injury rate than golf. That shocked me. But I suppose it shouldn't, because I can't imagine swinging a club over and over and over again like that without it leading to some type of shoulder or elbow or, whatever. It's a repetitive motion. Bodybuilding, hey, my knee hurts today. I've been doing too many squats. I guess I can switch to a different movement and still use my quadricep. And that's probably one of the nice things about bodybuilding, is that you don't have to keep training the same motor pattern over and over again. If at some point hammer curls are causing you to develop some type of tendonitis, switch to a different curl variation. Switch to dumbbell rows. You can do dumbbell rows and that'll still build your biceps. So the nice thing about bodybuilding is that you don't have to squat, you don't have to deadlift, you don't have to bench press. You can do incline bench presses, you could do dumbbell bench presses, you could do the chest press machine, you could do a whole bunch of other variants So I actually think that that prevents people from developing overuse injuries because you're able to just swap out for a different movement. That slightly different movement uses a different muscle pattern, different stress on the tendon, etc. And you're still getting this stimulation of resistance training, but you're not hammering that same pattern over and over and over again. Just like that, suddenly your tendonitis goes away. And you don't have to do 1 rep maxes, so you don't have to go so heavy that you risk, blowing a tendon off the bone. Like I said, that's my defense of bodybuilding, and that's also where I give you guys the exceptions that, competing is the issue. It's not that bodybuilding itself is bad, it's that the measures that people go to in order to compete, the extreme dieting, the drugs, etc., that's where the problems come in. Otherwise, yeah, I think it's a very sustainable and healthy thing for people to do. If you guys like the content, you watch 20 minutes of this video, I should probably start telling you guys to like it at the beginning, because most people don't watch past the first 3 minutes, but whatever. I put these out anyways. I don't even care if anyone watches them. If it gets 8 views and 1 person benefits from it, that's enough for me. So like I said in the past, I just care that it helps even just 1 person. If you are that 1 person, be sure to comment below. Tell me what you think. Maybe have an opinion on this. Maybe have experience with it. Do you do bodybuilding exercises? The Chinese weightlifters do. I think that's really smart. I think that's really, really smart, actually. So, there's something to be said there. There's definitely some benefit, even if you have a sport like weightlifting. Doing some bodybuilding work could certainly cut down your risk of injury on other things. So, like I said, like the video if you like it. If this helped you, like it. Comment below if you have experience, and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. Maybe we'll talk about how to program stuff later. Or maybe we'll dive into some of these diets that I have here. I can't believe I found them. They're like really old. They're really, really old articles. And some really old stuff from John Meadows that I didn't even know I had. I came across it by accident, actually. I was cleaning up an old hard drive of mine, and I was like, hey, what is this article from Sean Heisen? Oh, it's an interview with John Meadows. So, yeah. Maybe outdated? Don't know. But I still think it's worth discussing because it's pretty well written. It's pretty intelligent. So maybe we'll cover that in a later video. So I hope this helps even just 1 person, and thank you for your time.